Hello and welcome to Flosstube. Number, I have no idea. It's July 1st, 2022, and it has been a very long time since I've done a Flosstube. Somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 6 weeks, probably closer to 10. I think it was around the end of April. When I last filmed, and a lot has happened. Life kind of derailed. No joke, life derailed. So last time when I filmed, let me back up and introduce myself. I'm Naomi, and this is my channel, Belle Stitches Pirates. Primarily about cross stitch, but I have also started working on diamond painting. I enjoy crocheting. Haven't actually shown any of my crochet yet, but I enjoy crocheting. I also dabble in some paper crafts, very minor dabbling. Usually it's to make something related to needlework. And do some beading, do sewing. I have a fashion design degree and work in theater in the wardrobe costuming departments. So I sew quite often. And that was what I was working on when I last filmed. We were starting construction for a local annual play called Hello Dolly, and it's produced and done on top of a mountain. People make a full day of this. They park down at the bottom of the mountain, and the mini school buses drive them up to the top of the mountain. It's about a 40-minute drive. And then there's stone block seating, terraces, and every year the association goes out and builds from the dirt up a full stage, dressing rooms. The only facility that is there that is permanent year-round, we call it the rock house because it is rocks, but it's basically two small one-room cabins. They're like probably 15 by 15 max. And so you have one on one end, then you have the women's and the men's bathrooms with a shower space, and then the other end is kind of a kitchenette cabin type of a cabin room. It has a sink, it has a counter, has a fridge. Well, it has two, but one says it doesn't work. I don't know if it's got any real cooking equipment, but it does have power and water, so they can make coffee. And the cast and crew, there's volunteers that come up and do a luncheon spread, and so they usually do simple things like, have a half a dozen types of bread and various sliced proteins and cheeses and vegetables, and you take a plate and you start building your sandwich. And then there's usually some kind of a tossed salad with 4 or 5 different kinds of dressing to pick from. So you can customize your food as you go along, but it's all picnicky type stuff that doesn't require heat cooking to prepare it, or if it did require heat, sometimes there's baked goods. Those were made like down at somebody's house. So I was building costumes for this show, or in my case, I was assigned all the jacket sleeve alterations. Dropping jacket sleeves or shortening them, jacket construction, tailoring is, most people don't like it. I'm not crazy about it, but I know how to do it. So when you've got somebody who's reasonably good at it and everybody else is like, I'm not sure what to do, I get all the jackets. So I had all the jackets to modify, and then some zippers and things. And once we opened, or once we went to first dress, I also became a dresser. I actually worked the performances. Add in COVID protocols, and we had all kinds of fun. So this was our show. Normally we get close to 10 weeks to build. We had about 6, which derailed stitching by a lot. And then we started, and it was not fun. The performers were all, for the most part, very lovely. Many of them, this was my 4th season. It was my supervisor's 13th or 14th season. And so there were a lot of people in the cast that we had worked on previous productions. So it was a little bit of a family reunion in that sense. We hadn't seen them for basically 3 years. It was great seeing everybody, starting to slide back into the groove of how doing theater on top of a mountain in full sun and all the elements and everything works. The problem became that there was a lot of disrespect towards our department from the director and the stage manager in particular. But it was doing a trickle-down effect to a lot of the other crew members. And some of it was difficult for people to see. Little things like, myself and the supervisor, we were returning people. We'd worked on 4 to 14 productions. And the director was somebody we'd worked with he was the only director I'd worked with for this particular company. The supervisor had worked every single one of his productions that he directed. We were well-known faces. It took 4 shows before he said hello to me. Yet he made an absolute effort to go say hello and introduce himself to the 2 dressers who it was their very first season. The arguments could be made that, oh, he was busy. Oh, why didn't I go make an effort to say hi to him? Because I'm bloody busy. And it was compounded by the behavior of the stage manager, who never asked us how we planned on running our department in terms of dishing out costumes, like what our game plan was. Oh, you've been here. It was her first year. Oh, you've been here a while. No, she would come and dictate to us. There was one day she told us she had emailed us the night before with when our meals were, when we were to take lunch. And it was already halfway through. 2 people were supposed to, according to her, already be back. So that day we ate lunch on the run. We literally made a sandwich and would take a bite and then go run off and do some work and then come back and, as we're passing our plate, take a bite. Took turns taking 2 minutes to scarf down our food because she was just impossible. And when you tried to talk to her, she was so dismissive and argumentative. It was outrageous. And so we're incurring meal penalty violations for employment law because we can't get a meal. It was crazy. And then we had a rain cancellation, which is fine. That gets planned in. There's contingency plans for the oddball rain day, or usually what it is a fire day. The fire risk level is high enough that because the location of the theater is in a state park, if the fire danger level's too high, the state park won't let us go in. So they cancel it. But in this case, there was a high chance of steady rain showers, and so they called a rain day and rescheduled the attendees. But then the last week, we were all doing home COVID tests, and the last week, enough people in the cast and crew tested positive that by Thursday, I think it was Thursday or Friday, for a Sunday show, they had canceled our final performance, which was bittersweet because there was a lot of routines that we had planned on. There were traditions, things like everybody signing a poster for everybody in the cast and crew. And those traditions didn't end up happening this year because they happen on final day. So that was theater taking over my stitching time. And then in the midst of all of that, just as things were starting to get steady, we'd gotten past the angst and fallen into a grudging working relationship with the people that we were having difficulties with. Partly by just telling ourselves we are staying for the actors. We're not walking off set strictly because of the actors. And also, we'd given our word. So, so in the middle of all that, right before Memorial Day, I went and got my booster and came home, and the front door was hanging open. And when I cautiously walked inside, I realized that somebody had been in our house, thoroughly tossed the place. And most of what they took is extremely replaceable. And oddly enough, they were there were things that I would have expected them to have destroyed. I have a cedar chest that has a lot of the mementos from our wedding. And it was open, but they had carefully taken the boxes and things out. Like, my bouquet is a faux flower bouquet, and I had it sitting in a vase with some stones, so it's propped up inside, set inside, and they had moved it. You could tell they'd shifted it, but they didn't knock it over. They didn't chuck it. Like, there was care taken, but then in other rooms, it looked like a bomb had gone off. One of which was my craft room, which was in the process of being rearranged. So now we're really rearranging and decluttering the craft room, which is why I'm in the front room instead of my craft room. But it was just, there was an odd dichotomy to what they did and what they took and what they didn't take. One of the things that they took was my iPad, which is how I edit the videos. So there won't be any editing, I'm sorry. What you see will be what you get. We're still dealing with insurance and trying to determine if we're gonna replace, because I didn't have the mini, but I had the regular size. And so we're trying to figure out if it's going to be a significant price differential to go up to the larger size. I think it's 11.9 versus a 9.8 or something like that. Since I do so much editing and stuff on it, we'll see. I may get to go up to the larger size, but in the meantime, I'm without an iPad, and because I use iMovie and I don't have a MacBook, I have a HP, a Windows PC. I just haven't bothered with trying to figure out how to edit the file on my computer. So this week at least is going to be unedited. I did, despite everything, it wasn't much stitching, but I did get some stitching done. So May, aside from actual sewing of costumes, was the bulk of what I did. In fact, I think all that I worked on in May was my Shannon Christine Designs Christmas Ornament Club from 2020. And I mostly worked on Have a Cup of Cheer. So we've got Deck the Halls. We've got Joy, Peace, Love. Don't open until December 25th. Warm Wishes. Merry and Bright, Holly Jolly, 'Tis the Season, Let It Snow. There's 15. So that leaves 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 9 of them, and they are they're all stitched. The top row, so the top row has its beads. There's some beadwork on it. So like, can you see? Oh, so all of this ribbon is beaded. So the top row has its beads, and I'm contemplating going ahead and cutting them off. I had made another one. I had made a 25 for a gift for somebody, which is why it's cut out, because that was last Christmas's gift. So I'd cut it out. So I'm contemplating cutting at least the top off, but possibly doing one here and cutting off this second row too. I have 6 left to do. And then I have last year's Ornament Club. I have the patterns for that. And she has launched this year's Ornament Club, and this year's theme is the 12 Days of Christmas. You can sign up on her Facebook and/or, well, you can sign up on her website for sure. I think she's got the link posted in her website, or in her website, in her Facebook group. But you can get, I believe how she has it set up is you sign up for the club subscription, if you will, and each month the charge goes, and I think it's $8 a month for 2 designs. We're getting our second set. We just got our second set. We're getting our second set this weekend. So we've had 1 and 2 was June. Or we got 3 and 4 is July, and then the next 4 months. So it's done in such a way that you could theoretically finish every design before Christmas. August, September, October, November, yeah. So you could finish before Christmas. For those who sign up after a month has been released, your subscription starts for the following month, but you can order the previous month's, I believe it's $10 for the 2 patterns once the month has been released. All the specifics and clarification on pricing is on the website, and I will link it below. But that was bulk of what I worked on in May. Then the show wrapped up 25th of, no, sorry, June 19th. Father's Day was supposed to be our last performance. And leading into June, I had sat down and looked at my whip go, which was horribly incomplete. And one of the things that I had on there was to reach 25% on pandemic. And I'm gonna pull off. Yeah. So it was to reach 25% on pandemic. And I have done that. I think I was at 22 something, and I filled in like all of this right here, and that brought me to 25, and I crossed off the whip go goal and said I was going to work on something else. So I did. But that was what I worked on at the beginning of June. Sorry. My parked threads are interfering with my needle. I was pulling it off the needle minder. The rest of June, what I ended up working on is the first thing I did was I tackled a whip go goal. So I knocked 2 whip go goals, neither of them June's, but I knocked 2 whip go goals off my list. One was pandemic to 25%, and then one was land that I love, and the goal was to stitch an animal. That was the goal. So I had done like Tavere on the eagle, because that's about where the page break is. So I finished the eagle, which finished an animal, and then I started and finished the little chicken thing. I did that whole USA star. I started this basket and bird over here, and that pretty much took care of the frame. Oh, and then I did a whole bunch of work on the strawberry and the little tree thing in the middle. And that was basically my frame. My frame was like Q-snap was about like that. So I filled that in. And then I was like, I'm not done with this piece. I'm not tired of it yet. So in the sense that I wasn't tired of working on it, I was finding it therapeutic. I felt like I was going along, making progress, but I was tired of the strawberries. Needed a break from the strawberries, and that's basically where I was kind of feeling like my next frame move would go. So I had the option of this corner over here to get to the far edge, or I could go down. So I went down, and I had previously done Land That I Love. You can see kind of where my ending point was based on the border threads there. So I had previously done Land That I Love, and so I started the house. And the rest of the month, I think probably the last 10 days or so, all I have done is work on this house. And it's really coming along. The windows are all in. This roof is completely done. The base is done with the exception of this brick filler is a different color than that brick filler to help give it an angle. And then I just have the front of the house, the rest of the wall color to fill in. But I'm gonna put it away because working on that house was not a WIPCO goal. It is now July, and I have plans for July. So one of the things that I wanna do is, aside from knocking out some more WIPCO goals, because I would really like to see some of them disappear. I added 2, I finished 2 in June, but I added 2 more. Because July's come out, so go figure. I do need to update my No New Starts profile, but I haven't touched my chatelaine in a while. And part of that was I hadn't yet figured out a system to be able to clearly read the chart. People kept saying, take a snapshot, use your snapshot tool in PDF, and that blows it up so you can clearly read it. I'm doing Polar Mandala, and the center block, which is rather large, it's like 100 and something by 100 and something, and that's over 2. It has the option to do it over 1. Slightly different style, or slightly different, it's not just like clear 4 by 4 by 4 for every single one on the over 2. The designer modified the charting for over 1 to make the northern lights of the piece not be choppy like they could be if you just converted the over 2 to over 1. So what I was previously doing was I had it open in GoodNotes and blown up so I could clearly see it. And then I had it open in MarkRx, I think is what it's called, an iPad marking app, so that I could mark off what I had done. Wasn't the most efficient of systems, but it was working. I was making progress. And then my iPad got stolen. I think my progress is saved. I won't swear to it until I get a new iPad and download my previous backup. So I'm like, I kept avoiding it. I would think about touching, picking it back up in June. I would be like, I should work on this. And then I would go, but I did it on my iPad. And I don't know where I was in the pattern. Like, I don't have the markup. So I'm like, I need a paper working copy that is blown up. So I took and went the PDF and I pulled out the individual page. And for the center, I cropped the page so it just had the 1/1. And then I took that and I copied the page 4 times and I cut it in quarters. And I'm gonna flash it for you. That's a quarter of the 1/1. Do it like this. So last night I pulled it after, getting this from Office Depot. I pulled out what I had done and took some needles and counted and marked and counted and marked. And that's what I have done already. But now I have a marked copy that is very clearly readable that I can use to stitch this. And I'm hoping that will help me get back, because I was so excited to start. I was so excited to start my chatelaine around Christmas. My bosses very generously gave, probably all of us, but they very generously gave me a Visa gift card with a nice bonus on it. And I was able to get the majority of the threads. I think there's a few that I haven't yet found, and I may have to substitute or just, fill them in when I find them. I need to go back through my inventory of threads, but I got 95% of the threads with that bonus. And so I was super excited to get it started. I got the fabric with the bonus. Like, all I had at that point was the pattern, and I got the ability to start this piece. And so to not touch it because I lost the device that had the information on where I was a bummer. And that's for anybody who's worried about a chatelaine. It's not hard to crop. And then all I did to print it, so I had it cropped each section. So I cropped it down to the 1/1, and then I copied that page 4 times, and then I cropped it so that it was just a little bit larger than the quadrant, so that there was some overlap. I could see what was happening in the next row or the next column, and not be kind of flipping between multiple pages to park a thread when I get down towards that, when I get to the edge. So cropped each page so that it was just 1/4, you know, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And then I went to Office Depot to their print services, and I said I wanted them to do copying for me, because they don't call it printing, they call it copying. And I said I wanted it on 11 by 17 paper, their largest paper size. I wanted cardstock, but when I got there, they were having trouble. The cardstock was jamming. And I said, I don't care as long as it's the heavier weight paper. Give me the 28 pound versus 20. Just give me something that's a little more sturdy. And so they ended up doing it on 28 pound paper instead of the 60 pound cardstock. But then the critical one is there's a question on, or a section in the order where it asks if you want it to be printed at its current size, or do you want them to fit it to the page? And I said fit it to the page. So it took this piece that's about yay so big and blew it up. I don't know how many times that is, because the original over one pattern is like half of a regular sheet of paper. So it's like maybe 5.5, no, probably closer to 4 inches square, printed on 8.5 by 11 paper. So I took basically a 2.5 inch square probably, and blew it up to almost 11 inches. So about 400%, give or take. And all I did to do that was I told them fit the image to the page. So it takes it and it fits it to the skinniest part of the page. So, you know, if you had a rectangle, whichever one, the first one to touch the sides of the paper would be how, so it doesn't skew it. It doesn't make it like distorted. And then I just, when I got home, I cut off all the white space on the edges. So now I have a working copy I can easily read for my chatelaine, and that is my goal, is today and tomorrow to get some serious stitches into my chatelaine. Goal number 2 is, and I put the camera on top of it. I'm going to apologize in advance for the bumping. So I've taken up diamond painting, and for our anniversary, I had made a comment to my husband. He was like, why are you watching all these diamond painting things? Are you picking up another hobby? And I was like, maybe. I really wanted to do the NASA Orion Nebulae photo, but as a diamond painting. Heaven and Earth Designs has charted it for cross stitch, but I just thought that even with as dark as it is, the bright colors and creatively placed glow in the dark drills would be really cool. So I was watching a lot. The reason he asked me was because I was watching a lot of Flosstube, or not Flosstube, diamond painting YouTube videos particularly regarding cross-stitch conversions, but also regarding various companies. Because my basic initial look at what the supplies were is like, there's poured glue and there's double-sided tape. I'm not sure which one to go with, which one's easier to work with, which one is more secure, you know, like I don't know. So I was still in the research phase of this, and our anniversary was approaching. So what did the dear man do? He got me a gift certificate to a company that had an Orion photo, an Orion kit. And it wasn't anything like what I was looking at. So I was like, you know, I went on, I'm like, sure, I'll try their kits. Okay, gift certificate. I'm gonna lift up the camera and pull the canvas out. So the one thing I have been working on, even when sorry, I kicked the table. There were some days where I just kind of was in a brain fog, but I needed to keep my hands busy. So I would diamond paint because I'm just painting by numbers. So let's see. I started this in April, towards the end of April, 1st of May, when it arrived. And he was super excited because it's got a treasure chest. And in 2 months, I have that bottom corner left. I definitely have to say I'm liking the poured glue. Their service for this particular company was a little or I shouldn't necessarily say service, it's shipping. So some of their items come from a warehouse in the US and some of them come from China. So this particular one, I got 3 paintings, all the same size. And then I got a drill, a case for the little screw top containers for the drills. One of the paintings came from China, took probably 6 weeks to get here. The other 2 paintings came from the US and came rather quickly. I'd say in a week, give or take. And then it was almost, so those 2 of the paintings came quickly from the US. The drill storage kit came from China and it took 4 weeks, give or take. And I was like, I know that I had a 4th item. And several weeks after the storage case came, the 3rd painting showed up. And so this one, which came from the US, was packaged in a box. The one from China, and so was the second one that came from the US. The one from China came just in a plastic wrapper with an envelope sleeve around it. Rolled up, but like not as nicely packaged for a painting of the same price. And I'm going to have to seal this one. So I've already done some research because drills just seem to disappear off of it. I have rolled each section as I've completed it. I've taken my marble rolling pin to it. And I still will lay it out and come, sit down and be like, oh, over there's a missing drill. I know I put that drill in back when I did this section, but the drills are just like evaporating. They're not even like popping off, they're evaporating. So yeah, it's gonna have to get sealed. But I am enjoying the diamond painting. So that's the status on all of my projects that I have worked on over the past couple months. And as far as July plans, I'm gonna try to get some good work into my chatelaine, and then I have the Black Needle Society Frogwarts Year 3 box coming. And I just today got the digital pattern. They experienced some issues with shipping. One of the items for the box was stuck in customs for forever and an age. And then when it was released from customs, they thought it was supposed to be in Kansas. It wasn't in Kansas, it was in Alaska. So next week they get to do a mad pack and ship for the stitch along retreat that starts on the 13th. They did release the list of what we need, so I was able to get supplies. The fabric that they recommended, so I already have year 1 and year 2. And I went ahead, because I haven't started either of those yet, and I decided I would pull fabric. So this, let's see, this is what I pulled from my stash for year 1. I'm not sure which way I want to go, but I'm probably going to end up working my way a little backwards. Year 3, and then year 2, and then year 1. This is the one I pulled for year 2, and that was in my stash. They recommended Beetroot by Fox and Rabbit, but of course it is not yet delivered. I think Fox and Rabbit was having some issues. They were moving their dyeing studio or something like that. So like there's been delays in production, plus shipping from Australia takes extra time, So nobody had beetroot. And I looked at the color of it, and then I looked at a couple of different people, and what I ended up going with is called Lychee from Dyeing for Cross Stitch. And it is, oh, that's a lot more cranberry. I wanted something that was red, but reddish purple. So beetroot, the general colors from the picture reminded me of the color of beets. They're really, really dark red, but sometimes they go a little purple. And it's called Lychee, Lychee. And I got the 36 count. So the fabric, all the fabrics I've pulled are 36 count, because my thought is I'm gonna stitch it and then take and make it a stacking drum, and I may, like, on the inside of the top and the bottom, glue a magnet so that you can take them apart and stack them each year, like almost like a puzzle tower. That's my plan. So that's why they all have to be 36 count now because they all got to be the same size. And then I got the bulk of the overdyed floss. So, and I say the bulk, there were 3 colors I could not get. So these are all the standard colors that they have for this year. I got 2 for any that was a recommended, and then eggshell is a substitute for any place where snowball just disappears into your fabric. I don't think that that's going to be a problem on the lychee, but it could be a problem on one of the other years, so I'm not worried about it. The 3 colors that I couldn't find were pumpkin pie, grape arbor, and currant. So I spent the bulk of a 3-hour drive looking up recommended substitutes, looking at the image on 123 Stitch, and then going and looking up the recommended substitutes to see which one had the same kind of colors or color variations. So for currant, I got this one, which is Bing Cherry. And Bing Cherry has a resemblance to bandana, but it's got more variegation in it, and it's more red than this. The bandana has some pink in it. Is there another one? No, that was the, and then we'll see where it's used, but for Grape Arbor, and the difference between these two is one's Classic Colorworks and one's Gentle Arts. But for Grape Arbor, I went with Cinders, and I think Cinders and Bing Cherry are a little close to each other. So depending on where those are used, if they're used next to each other, I'm gonna have to be really careful. And then the last one that I couldn't get, that was out of stock, was Pumpkin Pie. And I went with cinnamon, and there's ginger snaps also in the called for list. And I'm thinking that the 2 of them are very close. They're both Gentle Arts, but they're very close. So I may have to rethink that substitution. I basically, once I look at the pattern, I'm going to have to take a look at everywhere Pumpkin Pie is called for versus Ginger Snap and see if there's really that much of a issue, because I mean, twisted together, you can't tell that they're 2 different skeins. At least with these 2, you've got some variegation where you can go a little more. The Cinders has a lot of dark spots, so I could err towards dark for Grape Arbor and go lighter for currant. But yeah, so I played with substitutions, and you know, those 3 colors I will have to kind of keep an eye on, along with the ones that look a little close. And then I also picked up a whole mess of étoiles and metallics. I didn't pick up that many metallics. I mostly picked up étoiles. They've got 2 different sample stitchers, and one is doing the design with the DMC conversion, all as one piece, so on one long piece of fabric. But she is substituting étoiles for certain things. So like there's a bus. So the bus, she did the headlights and the mirrors with étoile. And I thought that was really a cool thing. So they tell you what the étoiles are. When I bought the étoiles, I didn't have their list yet because I hadn't gotten the digital pattern in. So I didn't have the list of the 4, not the pile, the 4 étoiles that she used. So I just basically bought all the ones that had similar colors to various elements that I thought I might want to use étoile on. And then because I thought some things might need a little more sparkle than the étoile would give, I also picked up a silvery gray étoile, or not étoile, metallic B52, because here's the thing. The middle is the metallic, and it's looking fairly white on the screen. That's the crazy thing. But this is the blanc, which looks really gray in person. And then you've got the écru, which looks really tan. And so looking at particularly the blanc, I was going, I might want it to be really, really white and sparkly. So I got the B50 or the E5200 metallic white, and then I got one that's like a light gold, almost a silvery gold, or a white gold. And then this one was just like, it reminds me of like cotton candy, but I was like, there might be a spot where I'm like crazy funfetti colors. So I grabbed that. We'll see what, if any, I use and where I use them. So that was my purchasing, my primary purchasing. For the retreat, they're doing a contest where you get bonus points, prize points, for completing year 3 in 14 days. Based on that, with a start date of July 3rd, the box is not shipping until probably July 8th. They offered everybody the option of a digital pattern. And so I got the digital pattern on July 3rd, which is Sunday. I will start this piece, and it's about 800 stitches a day that I need to do, which I haven't been doing that many stitches. But one of July's WIPCO goals was to finish a piece. didn't say start it and finish it, just said finish it. So that's going to be my big July project, is to start and finish year 3. And if I can fully finish it, even better. But my goal is to do that over the 3rd to the 17th, I think it is, the 14 days. And really, really do my best to accomplish that little goal. Then, because, you know, fabric can't travel alone, when I ordered the lychee, I also picked up, Dying for Cross Stitch had some extra Silk of the Month floss packs. So I picked up February, and I really enjoy how she does her floss of the month. When she does it, she didn't have a terribly great success with sales, so I don't know if it's something she'll continue doing, but you know, she has these 3 colors, and then the 4th one is literally a skein that blends the 3 together. So if you're uncertain about what to do for a color palette, it's great in that sense, because you have the solids, more or less, and then you have the really variegated one where you can really get some crazy cool effects. So that one's February, was the green, the gray, and the purple. And then April was like a chocolatey, I don't know, not quite chocolate, but a brownish gray, and that teal, and that rose purple or rose pink, and then of course the mix. And I'm not a big pink person, but that's a really pretty pink. I am a blues person, blues and greens, and that color combo I could go for. So I got those. And then another SAL that I have been eagerly awaiting, my husband might be waiting for it more than me. I made project bags for people if they were interested in the group. It's based off of the Disneyland ride Pirates of the Caribbean. It's called Dead Men Tell No Tales. SAL, we were targeting, the designer Ketty was targeting March 17th, I believe, because that was the anniversary of when the ride opened. But some personal issues, one of which was her design files getting corrupted, bad computer. Meant she had to redo a bunch of stuff. So she released the frame in June. It's a fairly large piece. And then the frame only had 3 colors, but with the July release of the first piece, the first like motif, she released the floss list to date. And so there's some blues and lots of browns and greens and yellows. So I've got the flosses for it. I'm not probably gonna start it this month, but I picked up the flosses while I was at Michael's with a 20% off coupon. And I'll set those aside. Part of why I'm not gonna start it probably anytime soon is I want to dye my own fabric for it. I've got an idea for like having almost like a sandy beach. I want to kind of paint dye my fabric. And And that means I've got to finish redoing my craft room so that I actually have a table that I can paint on. The last of my haul for the last little while is I couldn't, despite the fact that I had all that floss coming for frogworts, I couldn't let it travel alone. So I got 17th, which comes with the little plaid bit, to go in my pattern kit. I got, because I saw it and couldn't help myself, I got a Scottish Sampler by the Scarlet Letter. I don't have any of the floss or fabric for it, but it's one that's charted for Au Soie, and I have not used that yet, so I'm thinking that when I get around to this one, I'm going to do the Au Soie on like 40 count, because that just, it sounds cool. And I like Scottish stuff. I mean, my wedding sampler was a Celtic motif, so. And then I'm starting to plan a little bit for next year, and I didn't end up seeing or participating in the Autism SAL that went on last year. It was a reproduction sampler that was broken down into like 12 parts. And I'm thinking I don't necessarily want to do anything that's massive, but I was looking at patterns and looking at designs and thinking about the fact that it's not just autism that can affect people, it's any mental health struggle. And so I'm leaning towards a autism / mental health SAL for next year. And I picked up this pattern. I have the other pattern that I'm contemplating, but doing it a little less structured than the previous Autism SAL, where this time people pick something that speaks to them about autism or mental health. So I have had in my stash a pattern by Teresa Kogut that's called, I believe, Old Friend. It's a teddy bear, kind of battered teddy bear, but it's a teddy bear. And when I see that, I see my nephew who has autism, and it brings to mind the fact that his stuffed animal, he always had to have a stuffed animal. It didn't have to always be a bear, but he had to have some kind of a stuffed toy, and he had favorites, particularly when he was smaller, like through grade school. Anytime we went someplace where it was new, his bear, his wolf, had to come with him. Trust me, when the dog decided that his werewolf Stuffy was evil incarnate and destroyed it, and we couldn't get it from Build-A-Bear anymore because it was last year's Halloween edition and they weren't making it anymore, we hit up eBay. I still get the giggles over the dog's reaction when we brought home the new werewolf. He was heading inside from being out in the backyard, and he saw it up on the shelf and just went rigid and started barking his head off. And I'm like looking at him going, the door's open, you silly thing, come on in. And he's not moving. And so finally I went towards him and I turned and looked and went, oh, he's ticked off that the thing he thought he destroyed has returned. Yeah. So I have old friend, the teddy bear, because that reminds me of my nephew. But this one also really reminds me of what everyone should do in life, but particularly people with mental health struggles. We often end up literally taking one day at a time, whether it's a mental health struggle or just a health struggle. You take it one day at a time. And I saw this and I'm like, it's not too big. You know, it's 137 by 137. The quote speaks to me. About, you know, mental health and physical health struggles that my family has experienced, and that, you know, this is often the refrain, just take one day at a time. The quote is, the best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. And that is so true. So those are old friend, and then now this are my two pieces that are gonna probably be focus pieces next year. So I'm gonna work on kitting them up. I wanna make a special bag for mental health, autism. So I need to start looking and figuring out what fabrics I wanna use for that. And then last but not least, and I'll wrap it up because we're at 1 hour and 12 minutes. I forget where I got this. It's designed by Thread Maniac, but I got an email from one of the designer shops that I follow, and they were promoting this little design, and it was, I think, I can't remember if it was free through the 4th of July. It was free for a limited time, and you just paid shipping. So it ended up being like less than $4. But it's little and it's cute. And I saw it and it brought memories of going to the fireworks shows as a kid. Thankfully, it does not trigger memories of last year's fireworks show at my house. My city has people who ignore the fact that fireworks are banned. We had a 2-hour plus barrage of fireworks, and they weren't the little tiny crackers. Oh no, they were the big boom ones. Several people's houses caught on fire. Fire department was busy. So that's my haul. That's my stitching. My plans, at least through the middle of July. Get some progress on my chatelaine. Try to start and finish frogworts. See if I can do 12,000 stitches in 2 weeks. And work. It's gonna be an interesting challenge. But I'm feeling my bug come back, my stitching bug. I wouldn't say I completely lost it, but the struggles with stitching or with sewing, that balance, trying to find that balance, was sewing for the show, and then the dramas and the emotional drain that was taking on us, the emotional drain and the mental drain of your house being burgled. I called it a home invasion, and my husband corrected me and said, no, it's a burglary. you weren't home, so it can't be a home invasion. And I'm like, they still invaded my personal space. I'm like, semantics. Your report the police report can call it a burglary, because that's what the code defines it as. They still invaded my home, my sanctuary. So, you know, dealing with that, and then dealing with insurance and finding receipts and going through and tidying back up enough to figure out what is actually missing. The good news is I couldn't find my social security card after getting it updated from getting married, and I found that. I hadn't been able to find it for a couple of months. Couldn't remember where I last put it. I found it in the envelope I took to the DMV to prove that I had changed it. So, you know, a little bit of good, a lot of frustration, a lot of emotional draining. July's going to be a better month. I'm going to make some progress on these projects. Going to get my craft room back together and decorated and the way I've been envisioning it for a while now. Yeah. July's going to be a good month. I will try to see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.